Good afternoon out there in YouTube land. My name is Jared and this is my channel, Mazda B3K. In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace all the soft lines on your 1997 Ford E-150 Econoline van. Mine happens to be a conversion van, but this will be good for any E-150 of the era. Probably F-150s as well. Without further ado, let's get started. A couple things you're probably going to want before you get started. Some sort of penetrating lubricant. I've got Croil. You're gonna want brake clips. This is Duralast H1457. I've had them a while. These are Ford style brake clips used to hold soft lines in place. You'll find them in the rear, you'll find them in the front. If you destroy the existing clip getting it out, which happens a lot, you're gonna want these to replace with. You're also gonna want some line wrenches. I haven't figured out the size yet, which is why I grabbed a couple. But flare wrench, line wrench, you want to use this to break your brake lines loose, get more grip. So, because if you round out a tube nut, you're in for pain and suffering. You don't want to go there. And then there's a bolt we're going to need to work on in the back. I think it's like a 10 or a 12, I'm not sure. Grabbed a couple sizes. This vehicle is in metric, I believe. So, we're gonna take that. We're gonna need some locking pliers to try to get the old clip out. I'm gonna drag all this underneath the van. I don't have it lifted up or anything. I'm using the existing ground clearance and trying to get the work done because this thing's a pain in the butt to get in the air. And with all that said, I'll grab all this, get under, get started. All right, welcome to the underside of Enigma. So here is our junction block where our soft line comes in for distribution to the rear drums. This is actually a bolt in disguise. There's a stud that this vent hose connects to. But you take that out and it loosens the whole junction block. The junction block is considered part of the brake line. So you actually aren't loosening the brake line down here. You have to do that up top, and you have to do that at the sides to get these hard lines off. So that's what's going on there. And then I'm gonna have to twist you around a bit. Here we go. Ow. Oh, it's just pain. Okay. Oh, ouch. Okay. So you see up there, you see how you've got the vent line. It's going hand in hand with the brake line there. It's a little difficult to see, but over there is our brake line clip, and that's where our hard line that comes in from the frame rail is connected. So we want to break that hard line loose, then pull the clip. And once we do that and we take care of the bolt at the other end, this soft line should come loose. The other thing to keep in mind is you're gonna make a mess because it's gonna start dripping brake fluid, and I am totally cool with that. It's probably gonna get all over me. Not so totally cool with that, but just kind of how this works. You can minimize the flow if you press in the brake pedal and you hold it in the pressed down position. It doesn't allow a lot of flow, so it'll still drip, but a lot less. You're gonna make a mess either way. So keep that in mind. I'm gonna go figure out, I'm gonna start working on the distribution block side first, and I'm gonna figure out. Alrighty, so it turns out this is a 7/16, and it came loose pretty easy. One thing you wanna make sure of when you do this is if you start seeing the nut turn, make sure the line's not turning with it. You can absolutely twist off your line and then you got to run a new line, and it sucks. So you can see it's starting to leak brake fluid. Again, you're gonna make a mess. It's just how it's gonna be. The other thing to keep in mind with that is you will occasionally need to go up front and top off your master brake cylinder reservoir because it is dripping down, right? And you don't want to introduce air into the system. So Again, just make sure you don't accidentally twist this off. You can wiggle it back and forth like this, and generally you do that enough, it will break the tube nut loose and you're good to go. So let me get both. You want to break these loose first before you loosen this distribution block. So let me get this out, get the other side out. We'll go from there. Okay, got some paper towel action going on to try to keep myself from getting too miserable. This is a 15 millimeter for this vent tube slash nut. So it's actually not nut, bolt, sorry. It's actually hollow, which is kind of neat. There we go. And once this comes out, this distribution block should come off too. There we go. Okay, there you go. As you can see, kind of crusty because it's had brake fluid going through it, and it is hollow. So get that out of the way. And you'll also see now our distribution block is free. Just kind of let that sit and do drippy things. And now comes the crappy part, because it's dripping right where I need to be to work on the top. But oh, forgot to mention 7/16, if I didn't say it before, on the tube nut line wrench. So time to go work the other end. All right, hey folks, so I can get there we go. So what I've done is, again, 7/16 on the tube nut. I haven't taken it all the way out, so I can kind of control where the brake fluid is dumping, and it's loose, so that means I should be able to finish taking the tube nut out once I get the clip out. I've got my locking pliers. I'm going to try to pull the clip out nicely. It may not go nicely. What I may have to do is grab the little legs down there and just yank them out to the side and destroy this clip, because I have replacement clips, so it's not a big deal for me if it gets trashed. But just wanted to show you that, and now we're going to start working on that. Alright, couple of updates. You can see I've gotten the clip off. I had to cut on it, I had to bend on it, I had to pry on it. I hit it with penetrating lube. It was not fun, but it's off. I also remembered I have these really cool hose clamp pliers. So I have clamped off the line so it's not leaking anymore, so I don't have to keep going up and pouring brake fluid in the master. So at this point, I'm going to take that 7/16. We're going to take this off. We're going to inspect our replacement line first, make sure everything looks all right. And then we're going to swap that in, and we'll go ahead and get the tube nut back in. I'll move the clamp over so it's not leaking. And then we tighten the line back up. We'll take one of the new clips I got, drop that in, take care of the distribution side, and then you're gonna need to bleed the rear brakes after doing all this to get the air out. I'm gonna service the brakes anyway because some other issues I'm having, but you will have to do that, and I'll show you how to do that. Anywho's, let's keep this moving. Hardest part's over. All right, so the new line looked the same. It's in. I've tightened this up so it's not going to leak. I then went ahead. Oh, I must have a drop on the camera. Hang on. All right, let's continue. So I pinched off the new line so it won't leak. I'll show you on the old line because it is easier to do that. The amount of room I have and everything. But this fitting head here is not perfectly round or perfectly hexagonal. There's one side that's rounded. So it means that this can only fit in one way. So you're gonna have to rotate this around until you get that one way. There is a clip right here where I'm pointing. That clip needs to stay on. It goes on the back. It helps to hold this in position along with the clip that goes in the front. And then I showed you earlier the clips I'm going to use. They will fit, so I'm going to go ahead and just pop one of those in right there. Then we'll be done up here, and we just need to get the distribution side back together, and the actual line replacement will be complete. One thing to not forget to do, check and see if you're clogged. This one is. That's not uncommon. Dirt gets down the tube. So just take a pick or a paper clip, something. Just clear the tube out, hit it with some air. You know, got some air here. Stick it on there. Trying to figure out how to hit the air without this flying off into oblivion, because that's absolutely what it's going to do. Like so. Anyway, that's what happens when you don't have enough hands. Just clean this out real good. Make sure it's clear. The whole point of this vent is with the heating and the cooling of the gear oil that's in the rear axle and in the differential. It does off gas. It makes vapor pressure, and if the vapor pressure can't relieve itself, it puts undue pressure on the rear pinion seal and the rear differential seal and can cause them to leak over time. So just clean this out and then we'll do reassembly. All right, so I've got our vent tube on. This is back in. These distribution lines are back in. Pro tip here, take care of these, get them started before you put the vent bolt back in. You will thank me. It makes life a lot easier because you can spin this around and get it lined up just right to get these tube nuts started. Once they're started, you can shove this in position and you're fine and all is well. Make sure you get your tube nuts tight, you know, keep an eye out for leaks, all that jazz. I've got that in place, and then moving back here so you can see and I can see. Got the clip in. I took it over to my vise and I kind of flattened it slightly, and that made it go from being insanely hard to get in, because you're supposed to have enough room to like swing a hammer or something and tap this in. But in a van application, you don't get that room. Truck, yes. Van, no. So I took it to my vise, kind of flattened it a little bit, and that was the little bit of extra help I needed. It dropped in. That's not going anywhere. This is tight. It's not leaking. I used this brake line came with its own vent tube, which was really nice, and it also came with guides. So I've got all that in position. I transferred this bib over from the old vent tube, and I think what this is about is to try to keep dirt from getting into the tube. So instead of an opening right there, it's kind of at a weird angle, so it has this real sharp bend so dirt can't get in. Make sure you check that it's clear, right? Because we just took time to clear out the vent bolt, so you want to make sure that's clear too. And if you've done all that, we're actually done with replacing the line. But now we need to mosey on over to the passenger rear drum brake, and we need to crack the bleeder over there and let it bleed, so that any air that we may have inserted in the line changing this out can get out. Alrighty, so I'm under the exhaust pipe for reference, but see this guy? That's our bleeder. Take the cute little cap off. These wheel cylinders are new. So they actually still have their caps. So basically whoa. Basically all we're gonna do is just crack this open. Pretty sure it's a 10. Yeah, it's 10. So we're gonna crack it open. We're gonna let it bleed for a minute. This is called gravity bleeding. And I don't think we really got any air in the line. But this is a pretty good way to make sure that we don't have any air in the back. So first we do this one because it's the furthest away from the master cylinder up front. And when we're happy here, we go over to the passenger or the driver's side and we crack that one. And then I would say you're done. You know, you can do some road testing, make sure that your brake feel at the pedal is good. You should be good to go. Whew. This was not very fun without a lift, but it is doable. Good morning, everyone. Today is a new day, and I finally have time to work on the front soft lines. As you can see, tires off, this 21mm lug, pretty straightforward. Make sure you don't knock your dust cap off. That would be no good. While you're here, take a quick look at your brakes. Everything looks good up here. It should. It's basically brand new, so I rebuilt it not that long ago, except for I didn't replace these lines at the time, which is why we're here. So you have a 14mm here, and then this is your wheel speed sensor wire. So you're going to need to disconnect that so we can get this isolated. Up here is where that hard line enters the actual hard line that goes up to the master, and it's hard to see, but you can see that shape there. Should look familiar. That's going to be a brake clip, and we're going to need to figure out how to get it out. And then on the other side of that is going to be our 7/16 tube nut, and I'm thinking to be able to get that wrench in to do anything, we're going to need to pull this off and get it out of the way so that we got a little room to turn. This is going to be challenging in its own way because there's no way you can get in from the other side. We're going to have to do it accessing from here. So strap in, this one might get a little bit interesting. First thing we're going to do is we're going to pinch off our line. If you remember, that's what I did in the back to try to prevent a mess, at least for a little while. And then we can go ahead, break this loose up front. This is going to be a 14, as I just said. Oh, ow.
Are you okay?
Yep, I'm okay. Alright, so this is now loose. Get this guy out of here. Alright, so we should have, and this will be important in case your new line didn't come with, but you should have 2 crush washers. It's going to go on either side of this bolt. As you can see, this one's kind of stuck in there on this side. Other side already fell out. I'll put this over here. Put that bolt over there. And then I'll dig this out. The next thing we're going to do, like I said just a moment ago, is we need to separate our wheel speed sensor from our brake line. And I'll have to do that with 2 hands, but essentially you've got those little kind of fingers. You just push them back and that'll make room for the cable to pop out. So get those out, and then we will turn our attentions up and over here. Okay, so I've done a couple things here. As you can see, I have disconnected the wheel speed sensor line, so that's out of the way. And then I removed its little guide, and I also physically disconnected it from the rest of the line, the rest of the wire. And I did that to create some space over here so I can get a wrench in. And we are now ready to try to get that wrench in. I'm going to break that 7/16 tube nut loose first, and then I will focus on messing with this clip, bending it around and doing what I can to get it out. Remember, I have extras of these. If you don't have extras, you're gonna need to be really careful with this, or you need to go to the parts store and get those extras, because I think this one's gonna wind up being a fight, unfortunately. Okay guys, I have updates. So I had forgotten I have these 90-degree pliers, and they are working really well to kind of get on this and wiggle. And it's going to take me a while, but the clip is starting to come out, so I'm going to keep working on it with these pliers. As you can see, initially I thought I could try to grind through the top to break it. As you can see, what I could see is not really, that idea was not going to work, not from the angles I had. So a better idea would be to get you some of these 90-degree pliers and just get in there and start wiggling, and don't cut away at the spot where you can actually grab, which is what I did, which made this harder. But I'm going to keep working on this, get this clip out, and then I should just be able to pull this back. Well, not fully, because I still have the brake line connected. I'll finish removing it. I broke the tube nut loose already, and then this will come back and we'll be good. All right, so here's our clip. Again, my little grind idea was not going to work. Maybe the vibrations knocked something loose, who knows. But clip's out. It looks pretty similar to what I have, so I should be able to replace it. Line is now out. This is our side that was in. As you can see, it's got this other little clip that we did not need to remove. Leave that there. And there we go. So I'm going to go get the replacement. We'll do a comparison, make sure the part looks right. Probably should have done that earlier. But yeah, we're good. As you can see, we got a nice drippy line here. So we got good flow, which is good. And we'll get the new line and we'll start putting it back together. Okay, so I've got this started over here. I haven't done anything on that side yet. The way you know you've got the correct one, it's kind of tricky to tell by part number. I use the same company for all three lines. This is I think it's like dynamic friction or something, but it's a 350-54 315. I think that's the driver's, and then dash 16 is the passenger. But really the way you know you got the right one is you see how we have these I don't know what you call them, but basically we have these particular cuts. The way you know you got it right is only one of these sides, this side is flat, right? And then this side has a curve cut into it. The curved side is going to go on the outside, and that's so that you can put a wrench or a socket on it. Flat side's going to go against the caliper, and you'll know because it can only go on one way and make sense. So it goes up over. I looked at my footage before I pulled everything off to verify, and yeah, we're looking pretty good. So that's where that needs to go. I'm going to check my brake fluid at this point and make sure I don't let the master get too low. And then comes probably the trickiest part. We got to feed the other end of this line through. And then we got to connect everything. All right, so I got this in, and this one I didn't have to mess with. What I wound up doing is I pushed it down as far as I could with my fingers. But then these 90-degree pliers came in clutch again, and I just took them like this. And I just used them like a hammer, and because it could hook across this top, I was able to knock it down the rest of the way until it locked in. So now it's good and locked in. This line's locked in. I got the tube nut tight, so we're not dripping brake fluid anymore. And the last thing we need to do, so I do note, as you can just see it, you need to have a crush washer on either side where this line comes in to make sure you don't leak. Remember, that's 14, that's tightened up. Because the caliper did not leak anything, we should not need to bleed it, but I'll probably let the bleeder gravity bleed a little bit just to be sure. Make sure that no air got in there. And like I showed you in the back, oh, that's kind of broken. But just I think this is a 10. It may still be a SAE, but just crack this open, let it do its thing until you see fluid consistently coming out, looking good, no air bubbles or anything. Last thing we got to do is take care of the sensor. So we can go ahead and just shove that back in like so. And then we will push that back in until it clicks. Or at least so it's not coming back out, which I think we're good. I mean, otherwise I'll get a check engine light, I'll know what's up. And the last thing we need to do is put these lines back together. One thing I noticed is you see these soft rubber parts, that's where the clips need to go when you join it with the brake line, and these do slide around. So slide around where you need it, clip it in. Double, triple check that you don't have anything that could potentially rub on the tire. I lost a wheel speed sensor due to that. Shop didn't check for clearances, and then it just rubbed right through. So check that. And that's about it. All right, well, I'm glad I decided to gravity bleed, because check this out. See the air bubbles? Definitely some air that got in there, and that would have resulted in a spongy pedal. So we're going to let this do its thing until we're consistently seeing fluid coming out. No bubbles, just consistent fluid. That's why we check. Because in a vehicle, your front brakes are the vast majority of your braking force. So if they're not right, the vehicle becomes dangerous in a hurry. Okay, just kind of give you a quick overview of some differences I found on the passenger side. So good news is, slightly different way the metal's all bending over here, so much easier. You have a lot more access over here to get in here and do stuff. You don't need to take this apart. Everything's good. For me, this was a 3/8 right here for this bleeder. The brake line runs a little bit different. What I find interesting is initially it was rubbing right there. Didn't really hurt anything, but now that I've got it reran, you'll see it's not going to do that. But the other side looks like it's going to do that. Anyway, wanted to say that over here, my secret sauce was to loosen this with those 90-degree pliers, like I mentioned, and then I take, once it's been loosened, take this pretty small flathead, get it right there, push things out. If you push down and out enough, you'll get under it and hook it, and then lift the clip up, and out it will come. As an example, here's the clip from this side. It's actually reusable. I got it out in pretty good shape. Didn't really beat it up much. So that's about it. The passenger side went much faster and easier than the driver. So do remember, bleed this. Make sure you get all the bubbles out, otherwise you're gonna have a spongy pedal. But that's pretty much gonna do it for this video. The last thing that I would suggest to you to do is, you had to bleed your front brakes, you changed out the lines, you need to take your vehicle out somewhere, do some brake tests, do a couple of crash stops, real hard push on the brake pedal, make sure the feel is what you want. And if it feels wildly different than what you had before, and these lines weren't completely broken, then something is probably wrong. You may have air somewhere and you need to address that. Otherwise, basically, we are done here. Alrighty folks, that's going to do it for this video where we replace the front and rear soft brake lines on my 1997 Ford E-150 Econoline van named Engima. If you found this video interesting, if you found it entertaining, if you found it useful, please consider sharing, and subscribing. That does help to grow the channel, which allows me to bring you more content like this. Please also leave a comment. I like to read them, I like to reply to them, and I do like to learn from them. And remember, guys, I make mistakes so you don't have to. I'll see you guys next episode.